Greetings and welcome to the 18th edition of Verzió International Documentary Film Festival. I'm Oksana Sarkisova, Festival Director, and it is my pleasure to speak today to filmmaker and visual artist Firouzeh Khosrovani, whose film Radiograph of a Family is part of our program this year. Unfortunately, Firouzeh could not come to the festival in person, but we're very lucky to have technologies on our side. And having learned from the online edition last year, we are doing this online Q&As to give our audiences a chance and to get a deeper insight into the filmmaking process and also personal choices of the filmmaker during the creation of her work. So I would like to briefly introduce our guest. Firouzeh Khosrovani was born in Tehran, completed her art studies at Accademia di Belle Arti in Brera in Italy. Firouzeh's filmmaking debut, Live Train, was made in 2004, and it was about the Iran-Iraq War. It was followed by Rough Cut in 2007, a documentary about mutilated mannequins, where reproductions of the plastic female figures become a metaphor for the veiled Iranian women. Rough Cut was followed by an installation and video art piece, Cutting Off, for the Museum of Triennale di Milano in 2008. And Firouzeh also made numerous other documentaries, including 1001 Yearns, Unveiled and Veiled Again, Profession Documentarist, and many more. And Radiograph of a Family, screened in our program this year, premiered at ITFA. And at Verzió, it is part of the Viewfinder thematic program, which includes films that explore the boundaries of documentary genre and experiment with the very nature of seeing and representation in documentary cinema. So the film Radiograph of a Family is a story of the daughter of a secular father and devout Muslim mother living under one roof, first in Switzerland, and then in pre- and post-revolutionary Iran. And when I first came across news about your film, I read the punchline, "My mother married my father's photograph." This is a great way to awaken audience interest. And here is my first question. So there are a lot of films in which filmmakers explore complicated and often conflictual family stories against historical background. But your film is very unusual because it introduces family history with the help of reconstructed dialogue, archival footage, and a recreated interior of a family house that carries traces of internal and external changes. Could you tell us a little bit about how this idea came about?
Hi, it's my pleasure to present my film in the festival Verzió International Human Rights Film Festival. For answering your question, the idea of the film came from my childhood memories, my observations, my life experience, and my imaginations. And the first thing was the family albums that I was creating the story of my family and my country. And the first sentence, that was my mother married my father's picture, was I wanted to put the absurd sentence that is intriguing to then discover what has happened. So it was not a ordinary wedding. It was something, so I wanted to put also a melancholic music for the wedding ceremony. Then we find out the story.
Yes, indeed. It is a very unusual story, but it is also made in a very unusual way. And you have mentioned also in the earlier interviews that there were certain important cinematic influences that affected the form of this film. In earlier discussion, you mentioned Chris Marker and Marguerite Duras as important influences, and indeed your film very creatively references Sans Soleil and Hiroshima Mon Amour, which are also centered around the issues of memory, trauma, communication, spatial fragmentation. Could you tell us a little bit more about other cinematographic influences that you consider important for your filmmaking identity? For example, to what extent Iranian cinema, which is currently engaging with questions of reality, played a role?
Kiarostami, I would say. Abbas Kiarostami is our master, and he was doing always something between fact and fiction. And I wanted, I like very much this kind of cinema that is in between. And I was trying to end up the film with the documentary style. So you see my mother in the real time, in the real place, real person, and it was full reality. And the storytelling of the film is based on the true story, but I did many other cinematographic or dramaturgically changes in the story. And something was based on my imaginations. And I thought that my childhood imaginations were more true than reality. So it is somehow something is not real, but it's true, because it's not just my story, it's the story of the people of Iran. I have used the archival images of public archival images to extend my story to the story of others.
Yes, and I would like to get a little bit into the film form, because indeed it is very unusual. You have prepared a script and found voices impersonating your parents. I wanted to ask you, when casting for the film, what was important for you? Were you going after the similarity of the voices, or something else was important when finding the kind of oral embodiment for your parents in these reenacted dialogues?
It was more based on the good feeling of, for me, of the voice of my mother and my father. So I was trying first the fact to arrive this kind of a speech for the film, which was very difficult to balance it, because I didn't want an ordinary way of storytelling in the first person narrator. And I thought to add dialogues. Exactly, I've seen many times Hiroshima Mon Amour for having an idea of the creative stage dialogues. And it was very difficult to write it and then to find the voices. For my mother, I was trying to find an actress, a professional actress, because I wanted to have to change her voice during the film. In the first part, a shy and timid and out of and without self-confidence for my mother's voice, and in the second part, a powerful, very self-confident voice. So it was important to find a person who can do this change. But for my father, he is more stable during the whole film, and it was important to find someone who knows music and French. So the voice is of a very good composer, Iranian French composer, who gave us this honor to participate as my father's voice.
Is Firouzeh's voice also a reenacted
the
voice?
Or? No, it's the editor of the film's voice, because I didn't like to have my voice on it.
And I just have to say that the voices are very strong in the film, so very
even
very
if
good.
you cannot understand Persian, so you just the feeling of the
Yes. And how and when the idea of constructing a house that will be a kind of this metaphorical X-ray of your family emerged?
when I was working firstly with the pictures, just the photos, and then I extended the same photos that I selected for the film with, I was looking for some archival images to in the same mood, in the same place or same atmosphere, and from Switzerland and from Iran. And then it was not satisfying me because it was like the documentaries that I have already seen with working with archival materials. And I wanted to add something and to have more fantasy in the film. And the house, the concept of the house was very intriguing from the beginning. I thought to do it at our real home first. And then since I was designing everything and it was very reconstruction of a space, and I needed a large and long space. So I found that space, and it was fit to the way of storytelling that I wanted to divide the home in two parts and have it. And there was a door between the two spaces that could literally divide it. And so it was. I was very lucky to find this space.
What works most powerfully for me in this film is the scene that you have already mentioned, is when the camera slowly moves out from this reconstructed space into the real space of your house, and we finally see your mother. And then there is this very slow panning of the camera, turning away from her, reading around to the table with the X-rays. And that scene really works very strongly because there is an intense sense of realism, especially by contrast to the earlier stylized scenes. But then there is also a kind of powerful metaphor of fracture on a more general level. So I wanted to ask you whether this was planned already on the script stage, or how much spontaneity was there in that scene?
It was already meant. I intended to use my mother's backbones as the spine of a system. Since my mother is the revolution, and because of scoliosis of my mother and my radiologist father, it entered in the story, and I wanted to use it metaphorically as a spine of the like a backbone of a system which is now twisted, a little bit deviated. So I didn't want to add a sentence. I wanted to be perceived by viewers, even if the people cannot link this backbones with the story, because we are with the history. I mean, because if this is the scanning of a family, scanning of a home, scanning of a body, scanning of the history, so everything is linked together. It's a chain of linked ideas between images, between radiography, between also the fact of the revolution in the middle of the film. So everything is divided into the body, the house, the timeline. And so it was very designed timeline before making it, because I was considering everything in a very symmetrical way, to have some components in the beginning, in the first half, the same in the second half, and a mirroring of everything. So when we see something in the first part, that is my father's territory, my father's space, my father's turn, and then it's my mother's turn. And so it's pre and after revolution. And it was a chance, or a situation that is completely fit with the big history.
Yes, indeed, this interplay between family history and a much broader social and political context works very powerfully in the film. I would like to come back to the photographs. You mentioned that that was in some way a starting moment of thinking about the film, and also starting point of the film itself, clearly. They are very important carriers of memory, but also objects of frustration and negation and destruction. We learned from the film that your father was an avid and dedicated photographer, but also that photo albums were taken over by your mother at some point, and who reshaped family history in her own way. So we also see destroyed photographs, torn photographs, fragmented photographs, and we also see the scene in which a child embodying you tries to reconstruct it and fill in the missing parts with drawing. That's also a very strong poster image for the film. Could you tell us a little bit about your family albums, and whether you keep all these fragmented pieces of torn photographs, or this is again something that was made for the film from your memories and from your past experiences?
Yeah, this is the beginning of the idea, because when I was a child and I discovered these Torah pictures, the family album became my coloring book, and I was trying to add and draw the missing parts. And I think with the same idea, with the same intention, I wanted to reconstruct the film. That is a kind of looking for missing parts of the history. And I knew that is a very powerful metaphor, and I wanted to do something with this fact. And then I thought, for the film, it's very important to use it at the end of the film as the hope of reconstructing and a new reality. So, yeah.
So what we also experience is not only reconstructing this unity through putting together the photographs, but also that your own life path continues to draw on your parents' heritage. Like your father, you left to study abroad, and now you're back to Tehran. Do you feel that these two very different life views can be reconciled within you?
My mother and my father, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
I think, of course, this is the message of the film, that we have, there is another reality, a bigger reality, or a bigger than that is beyond every ideologies, or every kind of way of thinking, way of living. And so what is remain is life. And I think my parents, the love between them maintained the house. So with all differences, different beliefs, different ideologies. So everything has happened under a roof, and they stayed together. And it increased my my capacity of my capacity of adaptation, to be in the middle and to find a solution, to be fair and to love both at the same level. And that was something that I thought that I'm carrying the harmony in the house. And now, of course, I have my own life, and but maybe my values is more close to my father. But I fully respect my mother, and with love and with understanding.
And this film was a big international success. It played at multiple festivals. We are very happy also to screen it in Hungary in the coming week. Was the screen also? Was it also screened in Iran? And what feedback did you have from there?
Because of the pandemic situation, and there was not possible to have a big screening with full of audience. So we just organized few screenings with like 20 viewers or every time. But again, it has a very good resonance on the press, and many good film critics wrote about the film. And it is very, it's like a case study also for the more than cinema. It's so the people, Iranian people, talk more about what has happened after revolution, and that the revolution has happened in every single house in Iran, and many families got divided. So it's something that they can find themselves in the film as well. Every person, Iranian. And the other thing that is good, that it has been studied in a psychological aspect, sociological, aesthetic, also in many politics, in many different aspects. So they are very good experts, and with the different point of views, it has been a very good analysis, and I'm happy. Also in the foreign press, it was a very good.
Yes, and it also will resonate in Hungary, where politics dividing families is something that is very present and actual and familiar as well. So my last question would be, where do you plan to move next after plunging deeply into your family story? Do you already have a project ongoing, or still working with the current film's presentation in different contexts?
The presentation of this film is very, it's taking lots of time, and it's already 10 months after it. And I'm traveling a lot or presenting film by Zoom online discussions. But meanwhile, I began to grow an idea. It's again somehow personal, and somehow with archival footages and with reconstructions of the shooting scenes. And again, on the very innovative form of writing, that is, I think I would spend another 3-4 years to do. It was like 5 years for a radiograph of a family. And it was a very difficult film. So
yes, but it certainly one certainly feels that investment in the final outcome. So I would like to wish you best of luck with the next project, and hope we will see your next film and you yourself also in person in Budapest on the future Verzió Festival editions. Thank you so much for joining us from Tehran.
Thank you, and thank you the public to watch my film. I hope you enjoy it, and hope to come to Budapest with my next films. Thank you.
you.